Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about a question I get asked all the time, which is what is the difference between men and women when it comes to money? So that's what we're going to dive into today. For those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Joe Burns. I'm the Money Master. I help you disrupt how you think, feel, and interact with money in different areas around money mindset, money trauma, and money and racism, and cultural effects and impacts that money has on different people. So this week, I'm so excited. Okay, let's give a little bit of context to this one, okay? Because I get asked this question quite often, and it kind of dawned on me. To me, it's just like commonplace. It's like, this is how I see things, obviously, right? You all know me, right? It's like I see the world as a certain way, and then I just assume everybody else does. And I forget that sometimes the simplest things can make the biggest difference. That's why I really want to ground the conversation today in the simplicity of the difference between, like I said at the beginning, the difference between men and women when it comes to money. I had this question asked me a few weeks ago, and over time I've had this question asked to me, and I just answer, and I just this is just how it is. It's like pretty simple. And it kind of dawned on me one last time, like this last week. I was in a one-on-one client who's been working with me for quite a while. And we talked about all the things that came up and kind of our format of one-on-one stuff. Then at the very end, like the last 5 minutes, I made mention, this is how women feel about money. This is how men feel about money, just kind of as like a closing piece. And he stopped me. He's like, wow. He's like, that was worth like the whole hour, right, that we met. And it was like 5 minutes of just like, oh, hey, this is how I see it. This is really how the psychology and kind of the feeling and how it differs. So again, sometimes the simplest things are the easiest to help us make shifts and understand how we think about these different things, especially when it comes to how we think about it, right? Our mindset, how we feel about it, which is that trauma piece, right? And how we respond to it. And then culturally, what have we been taught, and which are how does society set up in a way that's oppressing one group over another or allowing one group to have advantage over another, right? And that's where the money and racism part comes in. So if we take our views and kind of couch them in that, right, and really look at and say, hey, how is this affecting these different areas? Then it's important for us to start really identifying where it's at, okay? And so that's where I want to have this conversation today. So in the simplicity of all of this, like, men and women do think differently about money. Now, most of y'all are probably like, well, no, duh, Joe, or they're different. They are different. But it's important to understand how they see things differently. Because if we don't understand the how part of it or understand the perspective, then it's really hard for us to interact with the opposite gender in a way that's going to make sense for them. And that's what this is all about. There's a lot of, when you look at the statistics in America, when you look at divorce, they still claim finances are like one of the leading causes to divorce. And I can see that, right? There's a lot of differing thoughts and opinions about money and how we spend it, how we make it, how we split bills up, how we don't split bills up, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of trauma that comes associated with that. But there's some things that we never take the time to think about, right? And part of that is how men and women have a tendency, right? I want to put that out there, have a tendency to see things differently from kind of a flight or fight, kind of that, they call it the lizard brain sometimes, but just that really primal feeling. And that's what I want to talk about today, specifically that primal feeling of how we view those two. So let's define those real quick. So for women, that primal need around money, because it's a resource that provides different things for us. But that primal need is around safety and security, right? They need to feel safe. They need to feel secure, and then they're willing to spend. Or they need to feel safe and secure without stressing about what's coming. So that's the primal side, right? That's innate part of us, or in some cases they call it the lizard brain part of us, of how they respond when they come up around the pressures of money. So that's women. Now men, on the other side, men couch a lot of how they see money and perceive it, and that primal side for them is all based upon their identity. What does it make them into? If they have more money, pretty soon their confidence builds, because it's part of their identity. They get a promotion at work. It's part of their identity. They lose their job. That's part of their identity. So when they look at money, they look at it as a status symbol for how valuable they are. And again, these are generalities and they can go one way or another. But if we take those and say, okay, this is where people are coming from, it starts to make a big difference when we start looking at overall how to approach different conversations with one gender or the other. Right? So take those and think about it. Kind of think about it going forward to say, hey, when I interact with my significant other, how am I approaching this conversation? If I'm talking to a friend, how am I approaching this conversation from this perspective? When we can change up that and really think about the conversation from this perspective, the personal conversations start doing better. Sales in our businesses start doing a lot better, right? Because we're talking to that primal need inside of people that they have to satisfy before they're willing to take that next step. Okay, so when we're talking about money, it's not just get over it conversation, but it's really trying to understand, hey, what perspective are they coming from? And how can I speak to them in a way that will help them satisfy that primal qualification, we can call it. Because once that's done, then we can have like really deep, awesome conversations. But that's part of that nature part of us, right? That innate feeling inside of us that we have to solve for. Because if we don't, then it will always be lingering there. All right, we start looking at money stories, we start looking at about how our money mindset is, or the money trauma, or when we look at culturally how things have affected us. When we start looking at all those things, they're all couched in how we respond because of these primal stances that we take and how society's kind of molded us to be, right? And there's lots more we could talk about here, but I just want to give you like the basis, right? So let's just wrap this up. As you start thinking about that, again, women think very differently than men. Women need safety and security. Men are looking at it from an identity perspective. So at the end of the day, those are the simplistic versions of both of these. And I know that if you can understand that and you can start to incorporate it in the way you interact with money, then you're going to have better conversations with those around you and you're going to feel elevated already. So it's just a little simple thing to kind of shift that perspective and really just try a conversation from a different angle. Try it out. Let me know how it goes. Let me know what you think, because I'm always curious to see, like, when people actually go apply these, what changes they've seen in their own personal lives. So let me know. You can comment below. You can send me an email. However you want to respond to me, that's great. Otherwise, we'll catch you next time. See ya.